I've talked often on this channel about how this rejection of the comprehensive liberal model, the liberal world order, whatever you want to call it, which was evidenced by the election of Donald Trump, is really only the first in a relatively minor victory in the war, the battle to solidify and revitalize. Sorry, I should say revitalize and solidify the Western cultural platform. And I have spoken also how it might also be just truly impossible at this point. We are in according to thinkers like Peter Turchin, this disintegrative phase that we're in right now is impossible to escape from if his Cleodynamics are any guide to the general trends of historical consciousness and history in general. If that's any guide, yes, it's. But then the disintegrative phase is going to result in some sort of collapse or balkanization or bring us to that point. But that is not something to plan for in the political sphere. One in the here and now, one must operate as if conditions will remain in a relatively stable state. And if they are to remain in a relatively stable state, then what is to be accomplished, what needs to happen if the so-called woke liberal model, which seeks borderlessness, although I'm not going to go over its commitments here, but if that is to be thoroughly supplanted or at least relegated to a certain subculture that still has a place in the public imagination and the American and Western DNA, then there must be a a return of a revitalization of the spirit of based upon the thematic orientation of culture and civilization. And what I mean by this is that there must be everything. Let me back up here. The right, as it is known, this thematic expression must once again take its place as the fixture of the public imagination. It must generate culture. It must exude and define, at least to a large extent, its ethos and what it is that it propels the constituent body of the polity towards. Who are we? What do we do? Why is this enterprise and the unique expression that our enterprise embodies, why is it worth protecting? Why is it worth passing on to our children and our children's children? And that is going to once again take that outsized place. It must generate high culture, and it must the psychic energies of the thematic orientation. It must once again generate culture, and it must be a fixture, at least a fixture, if not the fixture, in high culture. For decades now, I mean, you look at all you hear is how in academia it's 90% liberal oriented. It's all of the artifacts of culture which have come to define the public imagination. I'm talking about traditional media in this day and age, in the modern day and age, movies, TV shows, music. It's all been dominated by, at least most of it anyway, dominated by left-wing orientation, and I should take a moment to differentiate it in so much as you could call the right the thematic orientation. The left is that managerial orientation, which seeks to bring the entire the populaces of the world under that Francis Fukuyama kind of umbrella. And if the thematic orientation is to capitalize on its gains, which it certainly must, if it intends to provide a viable alternative to the platform of this, managerial Francis Fukuyama paradigm, then it must once again generate culture. It must be a fixture in high culture. There must be art and music and other human creations in the public sphere associated with that ideology and infused and effused, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, effused within the artifacts that define popular culture. But again, this is a challenge too for a couple of reasons. One is that there is yet what this thematic orientation that we have, it is hardly clearly defined in its own precepts. There are many competing visions within. There are many who think that this thematic model should purely be of Christian orientation. There are others who see some sort of who wish to in this way keep the liberal precepts, and that we could continue to have this sort of department store type setup where you have ideologies and visions that compete within a marketplace of ideas. So there's that. There isn't consensus among what the thematic vision, the content, and the expression should be. And the other thing is that there's so much, the sheer volume of what could potentially define this thematic vision is still undefined. It is not, it hasn't all been sorted out. We're in the age of information and knowledge. We'll talk more about how to bring about how we can move forward in this matter tomorrow.